Blood exploded from Sarah Mitchell's shoulder before the scream left her throat. Her body slammed into the asphalt, covering the biker she just shoved out of death's path. She didn't know his name, didn't know he was vice president of Hells Angels Bakersfield. All she knew was the instinct that kept her alive through 3 tours in Afghanistan. See the gun. Move first, think never. 12 hours later, 120 motorcycles would tear through the California night, hunting the man who shot her. Subscribe now. Watch until the end. Drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this story travels. Sarah Mitchell's beer had gone warm 20 minutes ago. She hadn't noticed. Dusty's Roadhouse buzzed with Saturday noise around her, but she sat at the corner of the bar where the shadows felt safer, her eyes fixed on nothing. Kandahar was close today. Too close. She wrapped her fingers around the bottle just to have something to hold. 34 years old, 3 combat tours, 2 bullet wounds. 0 people in this world who'd notice if she didn't wake up tomorrow. The bartender Dolly, silver-haired and soft around the edges, slid a fresh Budweiser across the counter. "Honey, you've been staring at that wall for an hour. You okay?" "Fine." Sarah forced her lips into something like a smile. "Just tired." "Lou working you too hard at the garage?" "Lou's fine. I'm fine. Everything's fine." Dolly didn't push. Good bartenders never did. Outside, the growl of motorcycles swelled. Sarah's shoulders tightened. 15 Harleys rolled into the parking lot, chrome catching California sun, riders wearing black leather vests heavy with patches. Hells Angels, Bakersfield chapter. She'd seen them around, heard the whispers. Most folks in this town crossed the street when they saw that death's head patch coming. Sarah turned back to her warm beer. She'd faced Taliban fighters in mountain passes with nothing but her rifle and her squad. Bunch of middle-aged men on loud bikes didn't register. She took a sip. Flat, bitter, perfect. Marcus Gunnar Walsh swung off his Harley and stretched his neck until it popped. 52 years old, and every one of those years lived in his joints after a long ride. "You coming inside, or you gonna pose for a calendar?" Big Iron called from the entrance. Gunnar flipped him off with a grin. "Just admiring the view, brother." 28 years he'd worn these patches. Vice President for 6. Before that, Sergeant Marcus Walsh, 2nd Marine Division, Desert Storm. Purple Heart. Shrapnel still lodged near his spine that screamed every time the weather changed. Nobody knew that part. Nobody needed to. He walked toward the bar, trading backslaps with his brothers, the easy rhythm of family. This was home. These men were blood, even if they didn't share a drop of it. He never saw the black pickup truck creeping across the lot. The Tommy Reeves had been waiting since noon, parked across the street in his daddy's old F-150, windows down, sweat pooling in his collar. His father's .45 sat on the passenger seat, loaded, safety off. 28 years old, unemployed, burning with a hate that had eaten him hollow for 12 months straight. These Hells Angels bastards had destroyed his family, kicked in his father's door, put Eddie Reeves in the hospital with a cracked skull, got him sent up for 15 years when the cops found his stash. Yeah, Eddie dealt meth. Yeah, he'd made enemies. But he was still Tommy's father, still the only person who'd ever given half a damn about him. Tommy's hands shook as he picked up the gun. He spotted his target, Gunnar Walsh, gray beard, leather vest, laughing with his buddies like he owned the whole damn world. The man who'd led the raid, the man who'd put Eddie in that hospital bed. "Time to pay," Tommy whispered. He started the engine. Inside the bar, Sarah felt it before she saw anything. The shift, the wrongness. Her skin prickled the way it used to in Kandahar, right before everything went sideways. She turned toward the window. Black pickup, rolling slow, too slow, and something moving in the driver's window. An arm extending, metal catching light. Gun. Sarah was off the stool before her brain finished the thought. Her beer crashed to the floor. Dolly yelled something. Didn't matter. Nothing mattered but the door. Through the glass, she saw him. The biker with the gray beard, back turned, laughing at something his friend said, completely blind to the barrel pointing at his skull. Sarah hit the door at a dead sprint. Gunnar heard the engine rev, started to turn. Something slammed into him like a freight train. His feet left the ground. The world tilted. A gunshot split the air, so close he felt the heat streak past his face. He hit asphalt hard, shoulder first. Stars exploded across his vision. When his eyes focused, there was a woman on top of him. Brown hair, gray t-shirt, blood spreading fast across her shoulder, soaking through the fabric. "What the hell?" Tires screamed. The black truck fishtailed, engine roaring, disappearing down the highway. Gunnar struggled to sit up. The woman was trying to move, her face twisted in pain but her eyes sharp, scanning. "Stay down," she hissed through her teeth. "Might be more." "More what? Who are you?" She almost laughed. Almost. "Just old habits." Then her eyes rolled back and she went limp against his chest. Everything after that happened fast and loud. Hell's Angels surrounded them in seconds. Someone shouted for 911. Two brothers with combat medic training dropped to their knees beside the woman. Ricky, Doc, Martinez, pressing his palm against her shoulder. Terry, Stitch, Williams checking her pulse. "Bullet went through," Doc announced. "Missed the artery. She's lucky as hell." "Who is she?" Big Iron pushed through the crowd, his massive frame blocking the sun. Gunnar couldn't take his eyes off her face. Pale, peaceful, like she'd done this 100 times before. "I don't know. She was inside, just came out of nowhere and—" Doc pulled something from her neck, a chain, 2 metal tags. He read them. His expression changed. "She's military. Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, 101st Airborne, 3 tours." The circle went dead silent. Gunnar looked at the unconscious woman with new eyes. The short brown hair, the lean, hard muscles, the scars on her forearms he dismissed as accidents. They weren't accidents. "She's a soldier," he said quietly. "She's one of us." Now, the ambulance took 7 minutes. Felt like 7 hours. Sarah regained consciousness twice. Both times she asked the same question. "Did I get him down? Is he safe?" The paramedics had to sedate her to keep her still. Gunnar rode with her. Nobody tried to stop him after they saw his face. He held her hand the whole way, watching the heart monitor beep, willing it to keep beeping. The young paramedic kept glancing at his vest. "You know her?" "Never seen her before today." "Then why did she—" "Because that's what soldiers do." Gunnar's voice came out rough. "We don't ask questions. We don't calculate odds. We see a threat, we move. Think later. That's how you stay alive." The kid didn't respond, just nodded, like he was learning something he'd carry forever. Mercy General Hospital, 4 hours of surgery. Gunnar sat in the waiting room the entire time. Nurses suggested he go home. He didn't move. Coffee went cold in his hands. Club members came and went, updating him, asking questions. He barely heard them. A stranger had taken a bullet for him. A woman he'd never met, whose name he didn't know until Doc read her tags. Why? What kind of person does that? The surgeon finally emerged. Young guy, tired eyes. "She's stable. Bullet passed clean through the shoulder, missed bone and major vessels. She'll need physical therapy, but she should recover fully." "Can I see her?" "She's sedated, won't wake up for hours." "I'll wait." Big Iron arrived at hour 3. He pulled up a chair next to Gunnar, said nothing for a long minute. They'd known each other 30 years. Sometimes silence said more than words. "Cops got a description of the truck," Big Iron finally said. "Shooters in the wind. You know who it was." "Tommy Reeves." Gunnar's jaw clenched. Eddie Reeves. That piece of garbage who'd been pushing meth to high school kids. They'd shut him down hard last year. Eddie got hurt. But what was the alternative? Let him poison more children? The son's playing revenge. Looks like. Big Iron rubbed his jaw. Been planning it for months, following you, learning your pattern. And he shot her instead. Gunnar stared at the operating room doors. She doesn't know me, doesn't know what beef that kid had. She just saw a gun and moved. That's what heroes do, brother. Big Iron's hand landed heavy on Gunnar's shoulder. And that's why we're going to make sure she knows she's not alone. Sarah woke to pain. Deep, throbbing, familiar. She'd been shot before, twice in Afghanistan. This was nothing new. Almost comforting in a twisted way, meant she was still alive. She opened her eyes. Hospital room, antiseptic smell, flowers on the windowsill, and a man in a leather vest sitting in the chair beside her bed. "You're awake." His voice was gravel and smoke. She tried to sit up. Bad idea. Pain lanced through her shoulder, and she dropped back against the pillow. "Easy," he said. "You took a bullet 6 hours ago." "Did they catch him?" The man stared at her. Something flickered across his face. Surprise, maybe. Respect. "That's your first question? Not where am I or what happened?" "I know where I am. Hospital. I know what happened. Got shot." She turned her head to look at him directly. "Did they catch him?" "Not yet." He leaned forward, elbows on knees. "But they will." Sarah closed her eyes. Failure. The old familiar weight settled on her chest. In Afghanistan, she never would have let a shooter escape. She'd have been on him before he cleared the first block. But she wasn't in Afghanistan anymore. "I should have been faster." "Faster?" The man almost laughed. "Lady, you covered 40 feet in 2 seconds flat. I've seen Marines who couldn't move that fast." "You served?" "Desert Storm, Sergeant Marcus Walsh, 2nd Marine Division." He touched her uninjured hand. "Everyone calls me Gunnar." "Sarah Mitchell." "I know, read your tags." He held her gaze. 3 tours, 101st Airborne, that's no joke. "It was a long time ago." "Doesn't feel that long though, does it?" She didn't answer. Didn't need to. He understood. "Why'd you do it?" The question hung in the air between them. Sarah stared at the ceiling. "Do what?" "Save me. You don't know me. Don't know anything about me except I wear a patch that makes most people cross the street." "Didn't think about it." "Bullshit." She almost smiled. "Fine, I saw a weapon, saw a target, moved. That's it. That's all there was." Gunnar was quiet for a long moment. "I was the same way," he finally said. "After I came back, couldn't turn it off. Every loud noise, every sudden movement, I was back in the desert. Took me years to stop reaching for a weapon I wasn't carrying." "How'd you get past it?" "Found people who speak the same language." He gestured to his vest. "My brothers. Most of them served, one way or another. They get it. Gave me a family when I thought I'd never have one again." Sarah's throat tightened. She turned her face toward the window so he wouldn't see. "I don't have that." "Have what?" "Family. Anyone. It's just me." The words came out flat, matter of fact, like she was reading a weather report. "Your people, dead. Car accident, 10 years ago, before my first deployment. Friends? I don't do that anymore. Not good at it." Gunnar didn't offer sympathy, didn't say he was sorry. She appreciated that. "You've got people now," he said instead, "whether you want them or not." She looked at him. "What does that mean?" "Means you saved my life, and Hell's Angels don't forget that." He stood slowly, his knees cracking. "There's going to be some flowers tomorrow, some food, probably a lot of guys in leather wanting to shake your hand. You don't have to see anyone you don't want to, but know that you're not alone anymore. Not after today." He walked to the door. "Gunnar," he stopped. "Thank you for staying. Thank me when you're back on your feet, Sergeant." He left. Sarah stared at the ceiling for a long time after that. Something warm flickered in her chest. A feeling she couldn't name, hadn't felt in years. It scared her more than the bullet had. 11 miles east, Tommy Reeves was coming apart. He sat on the floor of his cousin Derek's basement, back against the water heater, his father's gun still in his hand. His whole body shook like he'd been dunked in ice water. He'd screwed up worse than he'd ever screwed up anything in his worthless life. "You're done, man." Derek stood in the corner, arms crossed, face hard. "You understand that? You're completely done." "I didn't mean to hit her. I was aiming at Gunner." "You think that matters?" Derek laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You missed your target and shot some random woman. In front of 50 Hell's Angels. That's not revenge. That's suicide with extra steps." Tommy jumped up, knocking over a stack of boxes. "So what am I supposed to do? Turn myself in?" "That's exactly what you should do. Get a lawyer. Surrender. Maybe you'll get 10 years instead of 20. "I can't do 10 years. "Then run." Derek shrugged. "But those guys? They've got chapters everywhere. Every state, every country. You run, they'll find you. Might take a month, might take a year, but they'll find you." Tommy's phone buzzed. Unknown number. He stared at it, heart slamming against his ribs. It buzzed again. He answered. "Tommy Reeves?" The voice was calm, cold, the kind of cold that made your bones ache. "Who is this?" "Someone who knows what you did, and what's about to happen to you." "I don't." "Shut up." The words cut like a blade. "The woman you shot? Her name is Sarah Mitchell. Sergeant Sarah Mitchell. She served 3 tours in Afghanistan, saved 17 lives in a single engagement, got a Bronze Star for it, and you put a bullet in her shoulder because you couldn't hit a man standing still from 20 feet away." Tommy couldn't breathe. "The Hells Angels are mobilizing, right now. Every chapter within 100 miles is sending riders. By midnight, there'll be 120 of them on the streets looking for you." "What do you want?" "I want you to understand what you've done. You didn't shoot some random woman. You shot a war hero. And you did it in front of the one group of people in this city who will never, ever let it go." The line went dead. Tommy dropped the phone. His legs gave out. He slid down the wall until he was sitting on the cold concrete floor. Derek was staring at him. "Who was that?" "I don't know." Tommy's voice cracked. "Someone who knows. Someone who—" He couldn't finish. Derek's phone buzzed. He checked it. His face went pale. "What?" "Facebook. Someone posted about the shooting. It's already got 200 shares." Derek looked up. "They're saying she's a veteran, a hero, and they're saying Hell's Angels is offering 10 grand to anyone who can help find the shooter." Tommy felt something inside him collapse. "I gotta go. I gotta get out of here." "Where?" "Mexico, Canada, anywhere." "You don't have money for gas, Tommy. You don't have money for anything." "Then I'll figure it out." He grabbed his jacket, his keys, his father's gun. "I'm not sitting here waiting for them to find me." He was at the stairs when Derek spoke again. "Tommy." "What?" "That woman, the one you shot, you should know her name." "Why?" "Because you're going to hear it for the rest of your life." The Hells Angels clubhouse had never been this crowded. The parking lot was packed, 47 motorcycles, and more arriving every few minutes. Fresno, Stockton, 2 riders from LA who'd been passing through and turned around when they got the call. Inside, Big Iron stood at the front of the room, his frame filling the doorway to the back hall. The room had gone quiet. No laughter, no jokes, just hard faces and clenched fists. "Most of you know why we're here," Big Iron began. "Some of you don't, so I'll tell the story." He told it. The black truck, the shot, the woman who appeared out of nowhere and threw herself between Gunner and a bullet. Her name is Sarah Mitchell, Sergeant, 101st Airborne, 3 tours in Afghanistan. She's got commendations most soldiers would kill for. And today she walked out of a bar and saved Gunner's life without knowing his name, his rank, or anything about him. Silence, heavy and electric. She didn't do it for us. Didn't do it for money or glory or any damn thing. She did it because that's who she is. A soldier. A protector. Someone who runs toward danger when everyone else runs away. Big Iron's voice hardened. The piece of garbage who shot her is Tommy Reeves. You remember Eddie Reeves? The dealer selling meth to kids? This is his boy. Came for revenge, missed his target, put a bullet in an innocent woman instead. Growls rippled through the crowd. Now I know what some of you are thinking. Find him. Make him pay. Blood for blood. Big Iron shook his head slowly. That's not what we're gonna do. Confused murmurs. We're gonna find him, absolutely, but we're not gonna kill him. We're not gonna break his legs or put him in a coma. You know why? Nobody answered. Because that woman lying in the hospital showed this whole city what honor looks like. She didn't hesitate, didn't calculate, she just moved. If we respond with murder, we spit on everything she represents. He let that settle. We find Tommy Reeves. We deliver him to the police. We make sure he spends the next 20 years rotting in a cell, thinking about the woman he almost killed. That's justice. Real justice. The kind that lasts. Old Preacher, the former Army chaplain, stood up in the back. What about her? Sarah. What happens when she leaves that hospital? That's the other reason we're here. Big Iron's expression shifted, something softer underneath the stone. I made some calls, checked her background. She's got nothing. No family, no savings. 3 months behind on rent, working part-time at Lou's garage because she can't handle full-time hours. The VA's been screwing her on disability for 2 years. That's how we treat our veterans? Preacher's voice cracked. That's how a lot of them get treated. We all know it. Big Iron looked around the room. But we can change it. Right here, right now. For her. What do you need from us? Lou needs a full-time mechanic. The cottage behind the clubhouse is empty. And I'm looking at 47 men who owe a debt to a woman who put her life on the line for one of our own. The room erupted. Plans formed fast. Someone would talk to Lou in the morning. Someone else would clean out the cottage. Others would organize money for Sarah's medical bills. Gunnar stood apart from the chaos, watching his brothers become something more than a motorcycle club. Something better. His phone buzzed. Text from a blocked number. East Side Trailer Park. He's packing. Going to run. Gunnar caught Big Iron's eye across the room. Big Iron read his face. Raised a hand. The room went silent. We got a location. East Side Trailer Park. Tommy Reeves is there and he's about to bolt. The energy shifted. Predatory now. 47 bikes isn't enough. I want every chapter in range. Sacramento, Fresno, Modesto, all of them. Tell them what happened. Tell them why we ride. What's the count looking like? Big Iron's smile was cold. By midnight, 120, maybe more. Enough to surround that trailer park so tight a rat couldn't squeeze out. He swept his gaze across the room. We ride in 1 hour. Gear up. Spread the word. Remember, we're not going to kill. He paused. We're going to hunt. The clubhouse exploded into motion. Gunnar walked outside. The night air had gone cool. Stars scattered across the desert sky. Engines were starting all around him, headlights cutting through the dark. Somewhere in the city, Tommy Reeves was stuffing clothes into a bag, thinking he could run. He had no idea. And in a hospital room across town, Sarah Mitchell slept without nightmares for the first time in 3 years. Completely unaware that 120 bikers were about to ride through the night to avenge her. The hunt was on. The first engine fired at 11:47 p.m., then another and another, until the night itself seemed to shake with the thunder of 120 Harley-Davidsons roaring to life. Gunnar pulled on his helmet and looked down the row of headlights stretching into the darkness. He'd seen convoys in Iraq. He'd seen military operations that moved with precision and purpose. But he'd never seen anything like this. Brothers from 6 different chapters. Men who'd driven 3 hours on 15 minutes notice. All because a woman they'd never met had done something extraordinary. Big Iron's voice crackled through the radio. Listen up. 4 groups. North, south, east, west. We surround the trailer park. Nobody gets in or out. When we spot him, we call it in. Nobody moves alone. Nobody plays hero. We do this clean. And if he runs, someone asked, then we chase. But we don't touch him until the cops are on scene. I already called Sheriff Martinez. He's got units standing by 2 blocks out. We flush Tommy Reeves. They make the arrest. Understood? A chorus of affirmatives echoed through the radio. Gunner kicked his bike into gear. The pack began to move, splitting into 4 rivers of chrome and leather, flowing through the streets of Bakersfield. Shop owners stepped onto sidewalks to watch them pass. A group of teenagers filmed with their phones. An old man on a porch stood and saluted. Word had spread fast. The whole city knew what was happening tonight. They were hunting the man who shot a hero, and God help him when they found him. Tommy Reeves heard them before he saw them, a distant rumble that grew louder with each passing second. He'd been stuffing clothes into a garbage bag, hands shaking so bad he kept dropping things. His cousin Derek had already bailed, took off an hour ago, saying he wanted no part of this mess. Tommy was alone. The rumble became a roar. He ran to the window of his trailer and felt his heart stop. Headlights, dozens of them, coming from every direction, cutting through the darkness like the eyes of wolves closing in on wounded prey. No, 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 no. He grabbed the garbage bag, grabbed his father's gun, sprinted for the back door. Maybe he could slip through. Maybe there was a gap somewhere. Maybe... He burst outside and froze. 3 motorcycles sat at the edge of the trailer park's back fence. Their riders didn't move, didn't speak, just watched him with expressions carved from stone. Tommy spun around. More bikes to the left, more to the right. The rumble was everywhere now, surrounding him, swallowing him. He was trapped. Gunner rolled to a stop at the park's main entrance. The scene before him was almost beautiful in its precision. A perfect circle of headlights illuminating the shabby collection of trailers. In the center, 1 unit with the lights on, movement visible through the windows. Got eyes on the target, someone reported through the radio. Hold position, Big Iron commanded. Nobody moves. Gunner watched Tommy Reeves stumble out the back of his trailer. The kid looked exactly like what he was. A scared young man who'd made a terrible choice and was about to pay for it. Part of Gunner felt nothing but contempt. This punk had almost killed him, had shot an innocent woman, deserved whatever was coming. But another part, the part that remembered being young and stupid and angry, felt something close to pity. Tommy Reeves wasn't a hardened criminal. He was a lost boy trying to avenge a father who'd never deserved his loyalty. Didn't matter. The law would sort that out. Gunner's job was just to make sure he didn't escape. Big Iron stepped off his bike and walked toward the center of the park. His massive frame cast a long shadow in the headlights. Tommy Reeves, his voice carried like a cannon shot. Come out, now. Silence. The whole park held its breath. Then Tommy emerged from behind a pickup truck, his father's gun shaking in his hand. Stay back, I'll shoot. Big Iron didn't flinch. You already shot once tonight. Hit a woman who never did anything to you. A veteran who served 3 tours protecting this country. You really want to add to your body count? I didn't mean to hit her. I was aiming at him. Tommy pointed the gun wildly toward the circle of bikers. Where is he? Where's Gunner Walsh? Gunner stepped forward into the light. Right here. Tommy swung the gun toward him. You destroyed my family. You put my father in prison. Your father was selling meth to high school kids, 14, 15 years old. You want to talk about destroying families? Ask the parents who found their children dead from overdoses. Ask them about destruction. He was my dad, the only person who ever... Tommy's voice cracked. Tears streamed down his face. He was all I had. And that woman lying in the hospital? She doesn't have anyone. No family, no friends, just herself. And she still threw her body in front of a bullet to save a stranger. Gunnar took another step forward. That's the difference between heroes and cowards, Tommy. Heroes sacrifice for people they don't know. Cowards shoot at people they blame for their own failures. Tommy's hand trembled. The gun wavered. For a moment, it looked like he might actually pull the trigger. Then his shoulders collapsed. The gun dropped to the dirt. He sank to his knees, sobbing like a child. Big Iron keyed his radio. "Sheriff, he's down. Move in." Blue and red lights flashed to life 2 blocks away. Sirens cut through the night. Gunnar watched them put Tommy Reeves in handcuffs. Watched them read him his rights. Watched them load him into the back of a squad car. It was over. Almost. 3 hours later, Gunnar sat alone in the hospital corridor. The adrenaline had faded. The satisfaction of the hunt had evaporated. All that remained was exhaustion and something else, a feeling he couldn't quite name. The door to Sarah's room opened. A nurse stepped out, a Latina woman with tired eyes and a kind face. Her name tag read, Elena Rodriguez. "You're still here?" "Couldn't sleep." Elena studied him for a moment. "You know, I've worked trauma for 12 years, seen a lot of patients, a lot of visitors. Most people who come to check on someone they don't know, they stay an hour, sign a card, leave, feel good about themselves." She leaned against the wall. "You've been here since they brought her in. What is it now, 14 hours? Gunnar didn't have an answer. Not a good one anyway. "She saved my life. Seems like the least I can do." "The least you could do is nothing. That's what most people do." Elena crossed her arms. "She woke up about 20 minutes ago, asked about you." "Me?" "Asked if the man with the gray beard was still around. I told her you'd been camping in the waiting room like a lost puppy." A small smile crossed her face. She laughed. First time I've seen her smile since she got here. Gunnar stood up slowly, his joints protesting. "Can I see her?" "Visiting hours don't start for another 4 hours." "I know." Elena looked at him for a long moment. Then she stepped aside. "Room 412. Don't tire her out." Sarah was sitting up when he walked in. Her shoulder was wrapped in fresh bandages, her arm in a sling. She looked pale, fragile, nothing like the woman who'd sprinted 40 feet and tackled him to the ground. But her eyes were sharp, alert, the eyes of a soldier. "They told me you caught him," she said. Gunnar settled into the chair beside her bed. "Wasn't hard. Kid wasn't exactly a criminal mastermind. What'll happen to him? Attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon. Probably looking at 15, 20 years. He paused. "That okay with you?" Sarah stared at the ceiling for a long moment. "His father was the dealer you shut down." "Yeah, so he was trying to get revenge for his dad. That's not an excuse." "I know." She turned to look at him. "But it's a reason. I've seen a lot of young men do terrible things for reasons they barely understand. Anger they can't control. Pain they can't process." Her voice softened. "War taught me that monsters aren't born, they're made." Gunnar didn't know what to say. He'd expected anger, maybe satisfaction. Not this quiet compassion for the man who'd shot her. "You're not what I expected," he finally said. "What did you expect?" "I don't know. Not this. Not you feeling sorry for the guy who almost killed you." Sarah almost smiled. "I don't feel sorry for him. I feel sorry for the boy he used to be, before life twisted him into this. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Yeah, one's weakness, the other's wisdom." She shifted slightly, wincing at the movement. "I spent 10 years being angry at everything. The war, the VA, the country that sent me to fight and then forgot I existed. You know where that got me? Where? Alone, broke, drinking myself to sleep in a bar full of strangers." She met his eyes. "Anger's easy, Gunnar. It's comfortable, makes you feel powerful when you're actually powerless, but it eats you alive if you let it." The room fell silent. Outside, the first hints of dawn were beginning to lighten the sky. "I know something about that," Gunnar said quietly. "The anger. The feeling like nobody understands. I came back from Iraq ready to burn the whole world down." "What stopped you?" "Found people who'd been through the same thing. Brothers who didn't judge, who gave me somewhere to belong." He gestured toward the window, toward the parking lot where a dozen bikes still sat. "They're not perfect. God knows I'm not perfect. But they're family." Sarah's throat tightened. "Must be nice." "It could be yours too." She blinked. "What?" Gunnar leaned forward. "Big Iron called a meeting last night. While we were hunting Tommy Reeves, the brothers voted. Unanimous." "Voted on what?" "On you." He pulled a small piece of paper from his pocket. "Lou's garage. Full-time position. Benefits. Real pay, not that part-time garbage you've been scraping by on." Sarah's mouth opened. Nothing came out. "And there's a cottage behind the clubhouse. Nothing fancy. 2 rooms, a kitchen, a bathroom that actually works. It's been empty for 6 months." He set the paper on her bedside table. "It's yours, if you want it." I can't just..." Sarah's voice cracked. She pressed her palm against her eyes. "You don't even know me. I know you took a bullet for a stranger. I know you served 3 tours in a war most Americans forgot was happening. I know you've been fighting alone for too long." Gunnar's voice was gentle. "Let someone fight alongside you for a change." Sarah didn't respond. Couldn't respond. The tears she'd been holding back for years finally broke through. Gunnar didn't try to comfort her with words. He just sat there, a steady presence in the quiet room, while she wept for everything she'd lost and everything she'd never had. 2 floors down, Elena Rodriguez finished her shift and headed for the break room. She'd been a trauma nurse for 12 years, seen more gunshot wounds than she could count, more victims, more survivors, more grieving families. After a while, you learn to build walls, to care without caring too much, to go home at the end of the day and leave the pain behind. But something about Sarah Mitchell had gotten through those walls. Maybe it was the way she'd woken up asking if everyone else was okay. Maybe it was the dog tags around her neck, the evidence of service that most Americans never acknowledged. Maybe it was the look in her eyes, that 1,000-yard stare Elena had seen in veterans before, the one that spoke of horrors witnessed and burdens carried alone. Or maybe it was the man who'd stayed all night in the waiting room, refusing to leave until he knew she was safe. Elena had seen a lot of bikers come through this hospital. Most of them were exactly what the stereotypes suggested. Rough men living rough lives, cycling through injuries sustained in bar fights and motorcycle accidents. She treated them, patched them up, sent them on their way without much thought. But these ones were different. The way they'd responded to Sarah's sacrifice, the way they'd hunted her shooter not to kill, but to deliver to justice. The way their leader had sat in that chair for 14 hours straight, waiting. Maybe the leather and the patches didn't tell the whole story. Her phone buzzed. A text from her sister. "Saw the news. 120 bikers caught that shooter? Crazy." Elena smiled and typed back, "You don't know the half of it." By noon, Sarah's hospital room had transformed. Flowers covered every flat surface. Arrangements from Fresno, Stockton, Sacramento, Los Angeles. Cards signed by men with names like Ratchet and Bones and Whiskey Pete. A giant teddy bear wearing a tiny leather vest sat in the corner. Nobody knew who'd brought it, but it made Sarah laugh every time she looked at it. Big Iron arrived at 1 o'clock, his massive frame barely fitting through the doorway. "Sergeant Mitchell." "Mr. I'm sorry, I don't know your real name." Jack Dalton. "Everyone calls me Big Iron on account of I'm big, and I used to work in a foundry." He smiled, softening the hard lines of his face. "How you feeling?" "Like I got shot." Sarah managed a weak grin. "Heard you caught him." "We caught him. Whole club. 120 brothers who rode through the night because of what you did. Big Iron pulled up a chair that creaked under his weight. I wanted to thank you personally and to apologize. Apologize? For what? For being the reason you're in this bed. Tommy Reeves was gunning for us. For Gunner specifically. You got caught in our mess. Sarah shook her head. I made a choice. Nobody put a gun to my head and forced me to run outside. That's on me. Still, I feel responsible. Don't. Her voice was firm. I've spent 10 years watching people I care about suffer for choices they didn't make. I knew exactly what I was doing when I moved. I'd do it again. Big Iron studied her for a long moment. Gunner told you about the job? The cottage? He told me. What do you think? Sarah looked down at her hands. The IV line, the hospital bracelet, the scars from wounds that had healed years ago but never really faded. I think I don't understand why you're doing this. Doing what? Any of it. I'm nobody to you people. Just some random woman who happened to be in the wrong place at the right time. Big Iron leaned back in his chair. Let me tell you something about this club, about what it means to be Hell's Angels. I've heard the stories. You've heard one side of the stories. The drugs, the fights, the criminal records. All true, some of it. We're not saints, never claimed to be. His voice hardened. But we're also the guys who ride with veterans on Memorial Day when nobody else remembers them. We're the guys who escort kids getting bullied to school. We're the guys who show up when one of our brothers is dying in hospice so he doesn't die alone. Sarah said nothing, listening. You know what I see when I look at you, Sergeant? I see someone who gave everything to this country and got nothing back. I see someone who's been fighting alone for too long. I see someone who still, after all of that, ran toward danger to save a stranger. Big Iron's eyes were fierce. That's not nobody. That's a warrior. That's family. The word hit Sarah like a punch to the chest. Family. She'd had one once. Parents who loved her. A brother who drove her crazy. Sunday dinners and birthday parties and all the mundane miracles of an ordinary life. Then a drunk driver crossed the center line and she came home from basic training to pick out caskets. I don't know if I remember how to be part of a family, she whispered. You don't have to remember. You just have to show up. Big Iron stood. The cottage will be ready when you get out of here. The job too. No pressure, no expectations, just an offer from people who understand. He walked to the door, then stopped. One more thing. That nurse who's been taking care of you, Elena? What about her? Her brother served, Afghanistan, didn't come home. Big Iron's voice softened. She asked if she could come visit you, on her own time. Said she wanted to meet the woman who reminded her what real courage looks like. He left before Sarah could respond. She stared at the ceiling for a long time after that, tears sliding silently down her cheeks. Evening fell over Bakersfield like a held breath. At the county jail, Tommy Reeves sat in a holding cell, staring at the concrete floor. His court-appointed lawyer had come and gone, delivering news that landed like hammer blows. Attempted murder, assault with a deadly weapon, use of a firearm in commission of a felony. 25 years minimum, if he was lucky. His father would be an old man when Tommy got out, if Eddie Reeves was still alive at all. A guard appeared at his cell. Reeves, visitor. Tommy looked up. Who? Some girl. Says she's your sister. Sister. Tommy's heart clenched. He had a sister. Half-sister, technically. Different mothers. He hadn't seen her in 3 years, not since she'd gotten out of their father's house and sworn never to come back. Jessica. Jessica Reeves. They led him to the visiting room. She was sitting behind the glass partition, 22 years old now, brown hair cut short, circles under her eyes. She looked exhausted. She looked furious. Tommy picked up the phone. Jess, what did you do? Her voice cracked through the receiver. What the hell did you do? I tried to. You tried to kill someone, and you shot a woman instead. A veteran, a hero. Jessica pressed her palm against the glass. Do you have any idea what you've done? To her? To yourself? To me? To you? How does this affect? I live in this town, Tommy. I work here. And now everyone knows I'm related to the idiot who shot a war hero in front of 50 bikers. Tears streamed down her face. I finally got away from Dad. Finally built something that wasn't tainted by his garbage. And you just destroyed it. For nothing. Tommy felt his own eyes burning. I was trying to get justice. For Dad. Dad is a monster, Tommy. He sold drugs to children. He beat Mom until she ran away. He beat us. Jessica's voice broke. You don't owe him justice. You don't owe him anything. He's still our father. No, he's the man who donated sperm. A father is someone who protects you, someone who loves you, someone who doesn't make you feel afraid to exist. She wiped her eyes. That woman you shot? She has no family. Did you know that? Her parents are dead. She's alone. And you almost took her life because of some twisted loyalty to a man who never loved anyone but himself. Tommy couldn't speak. The weight of his choices pressed down on him until he couldn't breathe. I'm not coming back, Jessica said quietly. This is the last time you'll see me. I can't carry your mistakes anymore. I have to live my own life. Jess, please. Goodbye, Tommy. She hung up the phone, stood, walked away without looking back. Tommy sat there long after she was gone, the dial tone buzzing in his ear, finally understanding the true cost of vengeance. Midnight again. Sarah couldn't sleep. The hospital bed was uncomfortable. The machines beeped constantly, and her shoulder throbbed despite the medication. But that wasn't why she was awake. She was thinking about the cottage, the job, the offer that seemed too good to be true. In her experience, things that seemed too good to be true always were. She reached for her phone. Someone had retrieved it from Dusty's Roadhouse and left it on her bedside table, and pulled up Google, typed in Hell's Angels charity work. The results surprised her. Veterans rides, children's toy drives, funeral escorts for fallen soldiers. Story after story of bikers showing up when nobody else did. She typed in Big Iron Jack Dalton Bakersfield, a newspaper article from 3 years ago. Local motorcycle club raises $50,000 for veterans shelter. A photo of Big Iron presenting an oversized check to a representative from the VA, surrounded by men in leather vests. Another article, Bikers escort bullied student to school for entire semester. Another, Hell's Angels chapter provides security for threatened domestic violence survivor. Sarah set down her phone. Maybe the leather and the patches didn't tell the whole story after all. The door opened softly. Sarah expected a nurse doing rounds, but it was Elena Rodriguez, still in her scrubs, holding 2 cups of coffee. Thought you might be awake. You're working late. Double shift, short-staffed as always. Elena handed her one of the cups. Decaf, doctor's orders. Sarah took it gratefully. Thank you, for everything. I know I haven't been the easiest patient. You've been fine, better than most. Elena settled into the visitor's chair. I heard about the offer, the job, the cottage. Word travels fast. It's a hospital. Gossip is our oxygen. Elena sipped her coffee. You going to take it? I don't know. Sarah stared into her cup. Part of me thinks I should. Part of me thinks there has to be a catch somewhere. What kind of catch? I don't know. That's what scares me. Elena was quiet for a moment. My brother served in Afghanistan, 2010 to 2012. He came back, different. Wouldn't talk about it, started drinking, stopped calling. Her voice tightened. He died 3 years ago. Overdose, alone in a motel room in Fresno. Sarah's chest ached. I'm sorry. The VA had his records. They knew he was struggling, but the system, you know how it is, understaffed, underfunded, underinformed. Elena's eyes glistened. I couldn't save him, but every time a veteran comes through this ER, I think, maybe I can help this one. Maybe this one doesn't have to end up alone in a motel room. She looked at Sarah directly. You don't have to take their offer, but don't reject it just because you're scared of being disappointed. Some people actually mean what they say. A small smile. Even bikers. Sarah didn't respond, but something shifted in her chest. Something that felt almost like hope. At the clubhouse, the victory celebration was winding down. They'd gathered after Tommy's arrest, drinking and telling stories and reliving the hunt. But now, close to 2 a.m., most of the brothers had headed home or crashed in the back rooms. Gunnar sat alone at the bar, nursing a whiskey he'd barely touched. Big Iron lowered himself onto the adjacent stool. You should get some sleep. Can't. Thinking about her? Gunnar didn't answer. Didn't need to. She's going to be okay, Big Iron said. Physically, anyway. The rest? He shrugged. That's up to her. You think she'll take the offer? I think she wants to. I think she's scared to. Big Iron poured himself a drink. She reminds me of you, actually. Back when you first came around. All that anger, all that pain, convinced you didn't deserve good things. I was a mess. You were. And now look at you. VP of the chapter, respected by everyone. Sober for what, 15 years? 17. 17, Big Iron raised his glass. Point is, people can change. People can heal, but only if someone gives them a chance. He drained his whiskey. We're giving her that chance. The rest is up to her. Gunnar nodded slowly. He thought about the woman lying in that hospital bed, the soldier's eyes, the broken voice admitting she had no one. He thought about himself, 20 years ago, standing at the edge of a bridge with nothing but darkness ahead. The brothers had saved him then. Maybe they could save her now. Or maybe she'd save herself. Either way, she wouldn't have to do it alone. 3 o'clock in the morning, Sarah finally drifted into sleep, the decision not yet made, but somehow closer. In her dreams, she wasn't alone anymore. In her dreams, there were motorcycles and leather and rough voices and gentle hands. In her dreams, someone was saying, "Welcome home, Sergeant." For the first time in years, she didn't wake up screaming. Sarah signed the discharge papers with her right hand, her left arm still strapped tight against her chest. 5 days in Mercy General. 5 days of nurses checking vitals, doctors checking progress, and a steady stream of bikers checking on her like she was made of glass. She hadn't gotten used to it, didn't know if she ever would. Elena handed her a small bag of medications. Pain pills, antibiotics, don't skip doses, don't mix with alcohol, and don't do anything stupid with that shoulder for at least 6 weeks. Define stupid. Anything you're thinking about doing right now. Elena smiled, but her eyes were serious. I mean it, Sarah. You push too hard, you'll tear the stitches. Then you're back here, and I'm stuck with you for another week. You'd miss me. I'd survive. Elena pulled her into a careful hug, mindful of the injured shoulder. Take care of yourself, okay? And call me. I wrote my number on the discharge papers. You did? Someone has to make sure you don't become a hermit again. Elena stepped back. Besides, you owe me coffee. Real coffee, not that hospital garbage. Sarah felt something warm bloom in her chest. A friend. When was the last time she'd had one of those? I'll call. You better. The automatic doors slid open, and Sarah walked into the morning sun for the first time in almost a week. The light hit her face and she closed her eyes, breathing deep. Gasoline, asphalt, desert heat, freedom. Then she heard the engines. She opened her eyes and stopped breathing. 50 motorcycles filled the parking lot. Chrome and leather and faces she was starting to recognize. Gunnar stood at the front, leaning against his Harley with a grin spreading across his weathered face. Thought you might need a ride. Sarah's throat closed up. All of you? For me? What, you expected a taxi? Big Iron stepped forward, his massive frame blocking the sun. You're one of us now, Sergeant. We don't let family take taxis. Family. That word again. It hit different now, standing in front of 50 men who'd shown up just to take her home. Home. Did she even have one anymore? The cottage is ready, Gunnar said, reading her hesitation. Stock the fridge, clean the place up. Nothing fancy, but it's yours, as long as you want it. I still don't understand why you're doing all this. You will. Gunnar handed her a helmet. Eventually. Sarah looked at the helmet, looked at the row of bikes, looked at the men watching her with something that might have been hope. Then she put on the helmet and climbed onto the back of Gunnar's Harley. The engine roared to life beneath her. The convoy began to move. And for the first time since she'd come home from Afghanistan, Sarah Mitchell felt like she might actually be going somewhere worth being. The cottage was small but clean. 2 rooms, just like Gunnar had said. A kitchen with appliances that worked. A bathroom with hot water. A bed with sheets that smelled like fabric softener instead of mildew. It was more than she'd had in years. Sarah walked through the space slowly, touching things like she expected them to disappear. The couch, the coffee table, the curtains someone had hung to make the place feel less empty. The brothers put it together, Gunnar said from the doorway. Everyone pitched in. Preacher found the furniture at a church sale. Doc Martinez fixed the plumbing. Stitch's wife made those curtains. Stitch has a wife? Married 32 years, 3 kids, 5 grandkids. Gunnar smiled at her surprise. Not everyone in this club is what they look like on the surface. Sarah sat down on the couch. The cushions sank beneath her weight, soft and comfortable. She couldn't remember the last time she'd sat on something comfortable. When do I start at the garage? When the doctor clears you. 6 weeks minimum. 6 weeks? I can't just sit around for 6 weeks. You can and you will. Gunnar crossed his arms. I talked to Lou. He wants you healthy, not hemorrhaging on his shop floor. Take the time. Heal. Get to know the place. He paused. Get to know us. I don't know how to do that. Do what? Any of it. Sarah stared at her hands. I've been alone for 10 years, Gunnar. I forgot how to be around people, how to talk to them, how to trust them. Her voice dropped. I'm scared I'll screw this up. Gunnar was quiet for a moment, then he pulled up a chair and sat across from her, close enough that their knees almost touched. You remember what I told you in the hospital? About finding people who speak the same language? Yeah, that's all this is. You don't have to perform, don't have to pretend. Just be yourself. He met her eyes. The screwed up, scared, angry self that doesn't know how to trust people. We've all been there, every single one of us. That's why we understand. Sarah felt tears threatening again. She was getting really tired of crying. What if I can't let you in? Then you can't, but we'll still be here. Gunnar stood. I'm going to leave you alone now. Let you settle in. There's food in the fridge, coffee in the cabinet, and a landline phone on the kitchen wall if you need anything. My number's on the sticky note next to it. He walked to the door, then stopped. One more thing. Tomorrow night there's a gathering at the clubhouse. Barbecue, drinks, nothing fancy. You're invited. No pressure, but... He looked back at her. It'd be good to have you there. Then he was gone, and Sarah was alone in her new home, surrounded by kindness she didn't know how to accept. She didn't sleep that night, not because of nightmares, not because of pain, because her mind wouldn't stop spinning, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. A week ago, she'd been invisible, just another broken veteran scraping by on disability checks and bad memories. Nobody knew her name. Nobody cared if she lived or died. Now she had a cottage, a job waiting, 50 men in leather who called her family. It didn't compute. People didn't just do things like this. Not in her experience. Not in the world she knew. Around 3 in the morning, she gave up on sleep and limped to the kitchen, made coffee with her one good hand, sat at the small table and watched the sky lighten through the window. She was still sitting there when her phone buzzed. A text from Elena. "You settling in okay?" Sarah typed back with her thumb. "Can't sleep. Nightmares?" "No, just thinking." A pause, then, "About what?" Sarah stared at the screen for a long time before answering. "About whether I deserve any of this." Three dots appeared, disappeared, appeared again. "You took a bullet for a stranger. You served your country for 10 years. You survived things that would break most people." A pause. "If that doesn't make you deserving, I don't know what does." Sarah read the message 3 times. Then she set down the phone and cried until the sun came up. The clubhouse barbecue started at 6. Sarah almost didn't go. She stood in front of the mirror for 20 minutes, trying to figure out what to wear to a biker gathering before giving up and pulling on jeans and a black t-shirt. Her left arm was still in a sling. Her hair was a mess. She looked like exactly what she was, a woman who'd been shot 5 days ago and hadn't slept properly since. She walked out the door anyway. The clubhouse was 100 yards from the cottage, close enough to hear the music and laughter drifting through the evening air. Sarah's feet got heavier with every step. By the time she reached the entrance, she was seriously considering turning around. Then the door opened and Gunnar was there, beer in hand, smile wide. "You made it." "Almost didn't." "I know. I've been watching you stand out here for 5 minutes. He stepped aside. "Come on, nobody bites. Well, nobody bites hard." The clubhouse was packed, more people than she'd expected. Not just the bikers she'd seen before, but women, children, even a few elderly folks who looked like someone's grandparents. The smell of grilled meat filled the air. Country music played from speakers she couldn't see. Everyone stopped talking when she walked in. Sarah's heart hammered. She wanted to run, wanted to hide, wanted to be anywhere but here, under the weight of all those eyes. Then Big Iron raised his beer. "To Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, the toughest woman in Bakersfield." "To Sarah!" 50 voices shouted in unison. And just like that, the moment broke. People went back to their conversations. Kids went back to running around. The music got louder. And Sarah found herself being pulled into the crowd by hands that shook hers, slapped her good shoulder, pressed drinks into her palm. "I'm Doc Martinez. I worked on you in the parking lot." "Preacher, I found the furniture for your place." "Name's Whiskey Pete. Don't ask why." "Stitch's wife, Mary. I made your curtains." Names and faces blurred together. Sarah's head spun. She wasn't used to this much contact, this much warmth. Part of her wanted to shrink away. Part of her wanted to stay forever. She ended up on a couch in the corner, nursing a Coke because she couldn't drink with her medications, watching the chaos swirl around her. Elena appeared beside her. "Overwhelming? How are you here?" "Preacher invited me." Elena smiled. "We've been talking since the hospital." "Talking?" "Just talking," but her cheeks flushed slightly. "He lost his wife 3 years ago. I lost my brother. We understand each other." Sarah looked across the room to where Preacher stood, laughing at something Big Iron said. The former army chaplain caught Elena's eye and winked. "He's a good man," Sarah said. "They all are, underneath the leather and the attitude." Elena took a sip of her drink. "Don't tell them I said that. They've got reputations to maintain." Sarah almost laughed. Almost. Then a commotion near the entrance caught her attention. Raised voices, tension cutting through the warmth like a knife. "What the hell is she doing here?" Sarah turned and saw a young woman standing in the doorway, frozen like a deer in headlights. Brown hair cut short, circles under her eyes, thin to the point of unhealthy, and familiar. Something about her face was familiar. Big Iron moved toward the door, his expression darkening. "You've got some nerve showing up here." "Please," the young woman's voice cracked. "I just want to talk. I'm not looking for trouble." Not looking for, your brother shot one of our people, put a bullet in a woman who never did anything to anyone. I know, I know what he did. Tears spilled down the woman's cheeks. But I'm not Tommy. I'm not my father. I heard she was here, the woman he shot. I wanted to. She trailed off, unable to finish. Sarah stood up. Her legs carried her forward before she made the conscious decision to move. The crowd parted as she approached. She stopped in front of the young woman. "You're Jessica," Sarah said, "Tommy's sister." Jessica nodded, trembling. "I'm so sorry. For what he did. For everything. I know sorry doesn't mean anything, but I had to come. I had to tell you." "Tell me what?" "That I understand if you hate me. If all of you hate me." Jessica's voice broke completely. "But I'm not like them. I got out. I've been working 2 jobs, trying to build a life that isn't about drugs and revenge and destruction. And now everyone looks at me like I'm a criminal because of what my brother did." Sarah studied the young woman's face, the desperation, the shame, the bone-deep exhaustion of carrying a name she hadn't chosen and a legacy she'd spent her whole life trying to escape. She knew that feeling, knew it intimately. "How old are you?" 22. "What kind of work do you do?" "Waitressing, cleaning, whatever I can get." Jessica wiped her eyes. "I had a good job at a restaurant downtown, but they fired me when they found out I was related to him." The clubhouse had gone silent. Everyone watching, waiting to see what Sarah would do. Big Iron stepped forward. "Sarah, you don't have to." "I know." Sarah didn't take her eyes off Jessica. "But I want to." She turned to face the room. "This woman didn't shoot me. Her brother did. Her father dealt drugs to kids. But she's not them." Sarah's voice carried through the silence. "I spent 10 years in the Army learning to judge people by their actions, not their families. Jessica's action tonight was walking into a room full of people who have every reason to hate her, just to apologize for something she didn't do." She looked at Big Iron. "That takes guts, the kind of guts I respect." Big Iron held her gaze for a long moment. Then he sighed, his massive shoulders dropping. "It's your call, Sergeant. This is your party, technically." Sarah turned back to Jessica. "You hungry?" Jessica blinked. "What?" "Hungry. There's food, lots of it, more than we can eat." Sarah gestured toward the tables of barbecue. "You look like you haven't had a real meal in weeks." I can stay?" "You can stay." Sarah put her good hand on Jessica's shoulder. "On one condition." "Anything. You tell me your story, all of it, and you let me help you if I can." Jessica's face crumpled. Fresh tears streamed down her cheeks. But these were different. These were relief. "Thank you. Oh God, thank you." Sarah guided her toward the food tables, aware of the eyes following them, aware of the murmurs spreading through the crowd. Behind her, she heard Big Iron's voice, low and wondering. "That woman never stops surprising me." "That's soldiers for you," Gunner replied. "They see a fight that needs fighting. They don't walk away." 2 hours later, Sarah and Jessica sat alone on the porch behind the clubhouse. The party continued inside, but the noise had faded to a distant hum. Stars scattered across the desert sky. The night air had cooled enough to feel pleasant instead of oppressive. Jessica had finished her story. The abusive father, the neglectful mother who'd fled when Jessica was 9, the brother who'd been her only protector until drugs and rage twisted him into something unrecognizable. She'd gotten out at 19, worked herself to exhaustion just to afford a room in a shared apartment, built a fragile life that Tommy's shooting had shattered in a single afternoon. "I visited him," Jessica said quietly, "in jail, before I came here." "How was that?" "Terrible. He still doesn't understand what he did wrong. Still thinks Dad was some kind of victim, not a monster who hurt everyone he touched." Jessica pulled her knees to her chest. "I told him I was done, that I couldn't carry his mistakes anymore. That must have been hard." "It was." Jessica turned to look at Sarah. But you know what was harder? Coming here, facing you, facing the people who had every right to throw me out. Why did you come? Because I needed to know there were still good people in the world. Jessica's voice cracked. People who could look past a name and see the person underneath. I needed to believe that was possible, or I don't think I could keep going. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, thinking about her own journey, her own isolation, her own desperate need to believe that human connection wasn't a myth. You need a job? Jessica looked at her sharply. What? A job. Lou's garage. They're looking for someone to handle the office, answering phones, scheduling appointments, basic stuff. Pay's not great, but it's steady. Are you serious? Dead serious. Sarah met her eyes. You want a chance to build something new? Here it is. Take it or leave it. Jessica started crying again. Third time tonight, Sarah was beginning to think the poor girl had an unlimited supply of tears. Why are you helping me? After everything my family did to you? Sarah thought about the question, about the long road that had led her to this porch, this moment, this unexpected offer of mercy. Because someone helped me, she finally said. A bunch of someones, actually. People who had no reason to care about a broken veteran with nothing to offer. They gave me a chance when I didn't deserve one. She looked at Jessica. Maybe I'm just paying it forward. Jessica lunged across the space between them and hugged her, carefully, mindful of the injured shoulder, but fiercely. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Sarah patted her back awkwardly. Human contact still felt foreign. Probably always would. But right now, holding this sobbing young woman who reminded her so much of herself, it didn't feel foreign. It felt right. Midnight found Sarah lying awake in her cottage, staring at the ceiling. The gathering had wound down around 11. She'd walked home alone, declining offers of escort, needing the quiet to process everything that had happened. Jessica Reeves, Tommy's sister. Somehow, impossibly, another piece of this strange new puzzle she was building. Her phone buzzed. A text from Gunnar. That was something tonight. With the girl. Sarah typed back. She's not her brother. I know. Big Iron knows too. He told me to tell you he's impressed. Tell him not to get used to it. A laughing emoji. Then, get some sleep, Sergeant. Big day tomorrow. What's tomorrow? You'll see. Sarah stared at the cryptic message, wondering what these people had planned for her now. Then she set down the phone, closed her eyes and, for the second time since arriving in Bakersfield, fell asleep without dreaming of blood. Morning came too fast. Sarah woke to pounding on her door and Gunnar's voice shouting through the wood. Rise and shine, soldier. Got something to show you. She stumbled out of bed, still groggy, shoulder aching from sleeping wrong. Pulled on clothes. Opened the door to find Gunnar grinning like a kid on Christmas morning. What time is it? 7. Early bird gets the worm. I hate you. You'll forgive me in about 5 minutes. He grabbed her good arm. Come on. He half dragged her across the property to Lou's garage, which sat about 200 yards from the clubhouse. Sarah had driven past it 100 times, but never really looked at it. Just another auto shop in a town full of them. Today, though, the garage looked different. A banner stretched across the entrance. Welcome, Sarah. Lou himself stood in the doorway, a lean, weathered man in his 60s, with grease-stained hands and a gap-toothed smile. There she is, the hero herself. I'm not a hero, Sarah said automatically. Lady, you took a bullet for Gunnar Walsh. In my book, that makes you crazy, stupid, or a hero. I'm choosing to believe hero. Lou extended his hand. I know the doc hasn't cleared you yet, but I wanted you to see the place. Get a feel for it. Sarah shook his hand and walked inside. The garage was bigger than it looked from outside. 6 bays, all full. Tools organized with military precision. The smell of oil and metal and hard work. It smelled like home. I know it's not Afghanistan, Lou said, watching her face, but it's honest work, good people, and we could really use someone with your skills. What do you know about my skills? I know you rebuilt a Humvee engine in the middle of a firefight using parts scavenged from a destroyed vehicle. Lou grinned at her surprise. Gunnar told me. He tracked down some of your service buddies. They had stories. Sarah felt heat rise to her cheeks. That was a long time ago. Skill doesn't expire. Lou gestured around the shop. What do you think? What did she think? She thought it was too good, too easy, too much like the universe was finally giving her something she didn't deserve. I think I'm going to like it here, she heard herself say. Lou's grin widened. That's what I wanted to hear. Behind them, unnoticed, Big Iron watched from the doorway. He'd been running this club for 18 years, seen a lot of people come and go. Some stayed, became family. Some left, moved on to other lives. Some died, taken by violence or accidents or the slow erosion of age. Sarah Mitchell was different from all of them. He couldn't put his finger on why. Maybe it was the way she jumped in front of that bullet without a second's hesitation. Maybe it was the way she defended Jessica Reeves, the sister of the man who'd shot her. Maybe it was just the soldier's steel in her spine, unbent despite everything life had thrown at her. Whatever it was, she belonged here. He felt it in his bones. He turned and walked back toward the clubhouse, already planning. The club's annual Veterans Day ride was coming up in a few weeks. 100 miles through the California desert, ending at a memorial service for fallen soldiers. Sarah Mitchell should be there, needed to be there. He'd make sure she was. Later that afternoon, Sarah sat on the cottage porch, her legs stretched out, face turned toward the sun. Her phone buzzed. Elena. How was your morning? Overwhelming. In a good way. That seems to be the theme lately. Sarah smiled. Coming to the clubhouse tonight? Heard preacher's been asking about you. A long pause, then, maybe, we'll see. You like him. I barely know him. You like him. Another pause. Maybe. Sarah laughed. An actual laugh, surprising herself. When was the last time she'd laughed out loud? She couldn't remember. Her phone buzzed again. A different number this time. Unknown. Sergeant Mitchell. This is Sheriff Martinez. We need to talk. Sarah's smile faded. The sheriff who'd arrested Tommy Reeves. About what? Tommy's lawyer is claiming self-defense. Says his client felt threatened by the Hells Angels and acted to protect himself. Sarah's jaw clenched. Self-defense. The man who'd driven up to a bar with a loaded gun and deliberately fired at someone's head was claiming self-defense. That's insane. I know. The DA knows. But it means there's going to be a trial, and you're going to be called as a witness. Sarah stared at the phone. A trial. Testimony. Reliving that moment in front of a jury, lawyers, cameras. She'd testified before, in military courts. But this was different. This was personal. When? 6 weeks, maybe 8. I wanted to give you time to prepare. Thanks for the warning. One more thing. Tommy Reeves requested to speak with you. Through his lawyer. He says he wants to apologize personally. Sarah's fingers hovered over the keyboard. The man who'd shot her wanted to apologize. Face to face. I'll think about it. She set down the phone and stared at the desert sky, her moment of peace shattered by the reality she'd been avoiding. This wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 6 weeks passed faster than Sarah expected. Her shoulder healed. The sling came off. The physical therapy sessions at the VA went from agonizing to merely uncomfortable. And somewhere in between the doctor's appointments and the daily routines, something else healed too. Something deeper than muscle and bone. She worked at Lou's garage now, full-time, real pay, benefits that actually covered her medications. The work was hard, honest, and exactly what she needed. Oil changes, brake repairs, engine rebuilds. Her hands remembered what her mind had forgotten. The satisfaction of fixing broken things. Jessica Reeves worked in the office, just like Sarah had promised. The young woman answered phones, scheduled appointments, kept the books organized. She was good at it, better than anyone expected. And slowly, day by day, the haunted look in her eyes began to fade. Elena came by most evenings after her shifts. She and Preacher weren't officially together yet, but everyone could see where it was heading. Sarah teased her about it constantly. Life, for the first time in a decade, felt almost normal. Then the letter arrived. Sarah found it in her mailbox on a Tuesday morning. Official court stationery, the district attorney's office. R.E. State of California versus Thomas Edward Reeves. Your presence is required as a material witness. She read it 3 times before the words sank in. The trial was scheduled for next Monday, 5 days away, and Tommy Reeves still wanted to speak with her. You don't have to do it. Gunnar sat across from her at the clubhouse bar, nursing a coffee that had gone cold an hour ago. It was 9 in the morning. Neither of them had slept well. I know I don't have to, but you're going to anyway. Sarah stared at her own untouched cup. He shot me, put a bullet through my shoulder because he was aiming at you. I've spent 6 weeks trying to make sense of it, and I can't. She looked up. Maybe hearing him explain will help. Or maybe it'll make things worse. Maybe. She shrugged her healed shoulder, still stiff, still aching in the mornings, but functional. I've survived worse than a conversation. Gunnar was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached across the bar and put his hand over hers. I'm coming with you. The jail won't let you in the room. I'll wait outside, however long it takes. His grip tightened. You're not doing this alone, Sarah. Not anymore. She wanted to argue. Old habits, but the warmth of his hand, the steadiness in his eyes, it cracked something inside her that she'd been holding together with willpower and spite. Okay, she whispered. Okay. The county jail was exactly what Sarah expected. Cold, gray, smelling of disinfectant and despair. A guard led her to a small room with a metal table bolted to the floor and 2 chairs on opposite sides. No windows, 1 door, security camera blinking in the corner. She sat down and waited. 3 minutes later, the door opened. Tommy Reeves looked different from the last time she'd seen him, screaming in a trailer park parking lot, waving a gun at 100 bikers. His face was thinner now, pale from weeks without sunlight, dark circles under his eyes that spoke of sleepless nights. He looked broken. The guard sat him down across from her and stepped back to the wall. Tommy kept his eyes on the table, unable to meet her gaze. You came, he said. I didn't think you would. I almost didn't. Silence stretched between them, heavy, thick. Sarah waited. This was his meeting, his words to speak. Finally, Tommy looked up. I'm sorry. The words came out cracked, raw, like they'd been scraped from somewhere deep inside him. I know that doesn't mean anything. I know sorry doesn't fix what I did, but I needed you to hear it. His voice trembled. I wasn't trying to hit you. I was aiming at Walsh. You came out of nowhere and I panicked and pulled the trigger and you shot me instead. Yes, tears spilled down his cheeks. I shot you instead, an innocent woman, a veteran, someone who never did anything to me or my family. He pressed his palms against his eyes. I can't sleep anymore. Every time I close my eyes, I see you lying there bleeding. I hear the gunshot. I see the look on everyone's faces. Sarah listened without expression. Part of her wanted to feel satisfaction at his suffering. He deserved it, didn't he? He'd almost killed her, had tried to kill Gunnar. But another part, the part that had seen too much death, too much violence, too many young men twisted by circumstances beyond their control, felt something else entirely. Why did you do it? She asked quietly. Really, not the revenge story, not the "my father was wronged" speech. Why did you actually pull that trigger? Tommy's hands dropped to the table. He stared at them like they belonged to someone else. Because I wanted to matter. The words hung in the air. My whole life I've been nothing. Eddie Reeves's kid. The dealer's son. The loser who couldn't hold a job, couldn't keep a relationship, couldn't do anything right. His voice cracked. When they put my dad in prison, I thought if I got revenge, people would finally see me, finally respect me, finally know my name for something other than failure. And now they know your name. Yeah, a bitter laugh escaped his throat. Now they know. The idiot who tried to kill a biker and shot a war hero instead. That's my legacy. That's what I'll be remembered for. Sarah was quiet for a long moment, processing, thinking about her own years of anger, her own desperate need to matter after the army had spit her out and the world had forgotten she existed. I understand, she finally said. Tommy's head snapped up. What? I understand wanting to matter, wanting people to see you. I spent 10 years feeling invisible, worthless, forgotten. She met his eyes. The difference is I didn't pick up a gun and try to solve it with bullets. I know that's not. Let me finish. Sarah leaned forward. You made a choice, Tommy, a terrible choice, and you're going to pay for it. 20 years, maybe more. That's the consequence. That's justice. Tommy nodded, fresh tears streaming down his face. But here's the thing about consequences. They're not the end. They're just a chapter. What happens after you serve your time, that's up to you. She paused. Your sister came to see me. His eyes widened. Jessica? She apologized for what you did, stood in front of 50 bikers who had every reason to hate her and took responsibility for a crime she didn't commit. Sarah's voice softened. She's working at the garage now, building a life that has nothing to do with your father's poison. She got out, Tommy. She broke the cycle. I didn't think she'd ever. She did, because she made a choice too. A better choice. Sarah stood up, signaling the end of the conversation. You've got 20 years to figure out who you want to be when you get out. That's a long time. Long enough to become someone different, someone better. She walked to the door, then stopped. I forgive you, Tommy. He stared at her, stunned. Not because you deserve it, not because what you did was okay, but because carrying anger is exhausting. And I'm tired. She opened the door. Use the next 20 years wisely. Don't waste them on hate like you wasted the last 28. She walked out without looking back. Gunnar was waiting in the parking lot, leaning against his bike, face tight with worry. How'd it go? Sarah took a deep breath of free air. I forgave him. Gunnar's eyebrows shot up. You what? Forgave him. Told him I understood why he did it, even though he was wrong. She climbed onto the back of the bike. Let's go home. Gunnar didn't move, just stared at her like she'd grown a second head. You forgave the man who shot you? Yes. The man who almost killed you? Yes. The man who... Gunnar. Sarah put her hand on his arm. I know it doesn't make sense. I know I should be angry, should want him to suffer. But I spent 10 years being angry at everything, and it almost destroyed me. I can't do it anymore. I won't. Gunnar was quiet for a long moment. Then he shook his head slowly, something like awe in his eyes. You're the strongest person I've ever met. I'm not strong. I'm just tired. Same thing sometimes. He kicked the bike to life. Come on. Big Iron's calling a meeting tonight. Something about the Veterans Day ride. Sarah wrapped her good arm around his waist as the motorcycle roared out of the parking lot. Behind her, the county jail shrank in the distance, and with it, the last of the weight she'd been carrying for 6 weeks. The clubhouse was packed when they arrived. Not just the regular members, brothers from other chapters too. Sacramento, Fresno, Los Angeles. The same faces Sarah had seen the night they'd hunted Tommy Reeves. Big Iron stood at the front of the room, arms crossed, expression serious. Settle down, we've got business. The noise died. 50 pairs of eyes turned toward the front. Most of you know what's coming up. Veterans Day, our annual ride. Big Iron's voice carried through the silence. 100 miles through the desert, memorial service at the Veterans Cemetery in Barstow. We've done it every year for 2 decades. Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. This year's different. Big Iron's eyes found Sarah in the crowd. This year we've got someone special riding with us. Sarah felt her face flush as every head turned toward her. Sergeant Sarah Mitchell, 3 tours in Afghanistan, Bronze Star, 2 Purple Hearts, and the woman who took a bullet to save our VP 6 weeks ago. The room erupted into applause. Someone whistled, someone else shouted her name. Sarah wanted to disappear, wanted to shrink into the floor and pretend none of this was happening. But Gunner's hand found the small of her back, steady and warm. "Breathe," he murmured. "They're celebrating you. Let them." Big Iron raised his hand, silencing the crowd. "I want to propose something we've never done before." He paused. "I want to make Sarah Mitchell an honorary member of this chapter." The room went dead silent. Sarah's heart stopped. Honorary member. She knew what that meant. Not a full patch. That required years of prospecting, proving yourself, earning your place. But honorary status was its own kind of honor, reserved for people who'd shown exceptional courage, exceptional loyalty, exceptional service. People like her. "This is unprecedented," Big Iron continued. "In 20 years, we've never given honorary status to anyone. But Sarah Mitchell isn't just anyone. She's a soldier, a warrior, a woman who put her life on the line for a stranger and asked for nothing in return." He walked toward her, the crowd parting like water. "Sarah, will you accept?" Every eye in the room was on her. 50 men in leather, waiting for her answer. She thought about everything that had led to this moment. The shooting, the hospital, the cottage and the job, and the slow, painful process of learning to trust again. The family she'd found in the most unlikely of places. "Yes," she whispered, then louder. "Yes." The room exploded. Bodies pressed around her, hands shaking hers, arms pulling her into hugs, voices shouting congratulations. For a terrifying, wonderful moment, Sarah couldn't breathe. Then Gunner was there, pulling her free, guiding her to the bar where a shot of whiskey waited. "Welcome to the family," he said. "For real this time." Sarah knocked back the whiskey. It burned going down, the best kind of burn. "I still don't understand any of this," she said. "You don't have to understand it. You just have to accept it." Gunner poured her another shot. "Think you can do that?" She looked around the room. At Big Iron, who'd believed in her when she didn't believe in herself. At Preacher, who'd found furniture for her cottage. At Doc and Stitch and Whiskey Pete and all the others who'd shown up, again and again, asking nothing in return. At Elena, standing in the corner with her phone out, tears streaming down her face as she recorded everything. At Jessica, grinning from ear to ear, finally part of something bigger than her broken family. This was her life now. These were her people. And for the first time in 10 years, Sarah Mitchell didn't want to run away from it. "Yeah," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "I think I can." The trial started on Monday. Sarah sat in the front row of the courtroom, wearing the one nice outfit she owned. Black pants, white blouse, the leather vest Big Iron had presented to her the night before, with the words, "Friend of the Club," stitched across the back. She tried to leave the vest at home. Elena had insisted she wear it. "Let them see who stands behind you," she'd said. "Let them know you're not alone." So Sarah wore it. And when she walked into that courtroom with 50 bikers filing into the gallery behind her, the look on the defense attorney's face was worth every moment of discomfort. The prosecution's case was solid. Eyewitness testimony from 24 people. Security camera footage from Dusty's Roadhouse. Ballistics evidence matching the bullet in Sarah's shoulder to the gun found in Tommy's possession. Tommy's lawyer tried everything: self-defense, temporary insanity, diminished capacity due to emotional distress over his father's imprisonment. None of it worked. Sarah took the stand on the third day. "Can you describe what happened on the afternoon of September 15th? The prosecutor asked. Sarah told the story, simply, clearly, without embellishment or emotion. The soldier's voice she'd learned in 100 debriefs, 100 after-action reports. I was sitting at the bar. I saw movement through the window, a truck, someone pointing a gun. I moved. Why did you move, Ms. Mitchell? Because someone was in danger. You didn't know the intended victim. No. You had no obligation to intervene. No. Then why did you put yourself in the line of fire? Sarah was quiet for a moment. The courtroom held its breath. Because that's what you do, she finally said. When you're a soldier, you don't calculate who deserves saving. You just move. You protect. You act. She paused. It's not bravery. It's training. It's instinct. It's who I am. The prosecutor nodded. No further questions. The defense attorney approached. Young guy, expensive suit, eyes that said he knew he'd already lost. Ms. Mitchell, is it true you've been living on property owned by the Hells Angels Motorcycle Club? Objection. Relevance. Goes to bias, Your Honor. Overruled. You may answer. Sarah met the lawyer's eyes. Yes, they gave me a cottage after I was released from the hospital. And is it true that you now work at a garage owned by an associate of the club? I work at Lou's Garage. I don't know anything about Lou's associations. Is it true that you were present when over 100 members of this club surrounded my client's residence? I was in the hospital at the time. But you're aware it happened? Yes. And you don't find it troubling that a vigilante mob hunted down my client instead of allowing the police to handle the situation? Sarah leaned forward slightly. What I find troubling, counselor, is that your client drove to a crowded bar with a loaded weapon, aimed at a man's head, pulled the trigger, and shot me instead. Her voice stayed calm, but something hard crept into it. What I find troubling is that he's sitting in this courtroom trying to claim self-defense when the only person defending themselves that day was me, against his bullet. The courtroom stirred. Someone in the gallery laughed. The judge banged his gavel. The defense attorney's face reddened. No further questions. Sarah stepped down from the stand and returned to her seat. Gunner's hand found hers in the darkness between the chairs. That was perfect, he whispered. That was the truth, she whispered back. The jury deliberated for 4 hours, guilty on all counts. Tommy Reeves stood motionless as the verdict was read. Attempted murder in the first degree, assault with a deadly weapon, use of a firearm in commission of a felony. Sentencing would come later, but everyone knew the range, 20 to 25 years, maybe more. Sarah watched his face as the bailiffs led him away. He looked smaller somehow, diminished. Whatever fire had driven him to pick up that gun was gone now, replaced by the hollow emptiness of a man who'd thrown his life away for nothing. He caught her eye as he passed, mouthed 2 words, "Thank you." She nodded once. Then he was gone, disappeared through a side door that led to a future of concrete and regret. Outside the courthouse, the media waited. Cameras, microphones, reporters shouting questions. Ms. Mitchell, how do you feel about the verdict? Ms. Mitchell, is it true you've joined the Hells Angels? Ms. Mitchell, what's your message to other veterans? Sarah started to push through the crowd, but Big Iron's hand stopped her. You've got something to say, he murmured. Say it. She looked at the cameras, the faces, the recording devices that would carry her words to thousands of screens across the country. She thought about all the veterans watching, the ones who felt forgotten, the ones who felt worthless, the ones who were right now sitting in bars and apartments and homeless shelters, wondering if anyone remembered they existed. She stepped up to the microphones. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I served 3 tours in Afghanistan with the 101st Airborne Division. 6 weeks ago, I took a bullet protecting a stranger. She paused. I'm not a hero. I'm just a soldier who did what soldiers do. Protect people who can't protect themselves. The crowd fell silent. But I want to say something to any veteran who's watching this. Any soldier or Marine or sailor or airman who came home and found themselves alone, forgotten, struggling to survive in a country that seems to have moved on without them. Her voice cracked slightly. She pushed through it. You matter. Your service matters. Your life matters. Even when it doesn't feel like it. Even when the VA screws you over and the bills pile up and you can't remember the last time someone said thank you. She blinked back tears. You matter. And there are people out there who understand. People who want to help. You just have to let them. She stepped back from the microphones. No more questions. Big Iron put his arm around her shoulders as they walked through the crowd. The cameras kept flashing. The reporters kept shouting. But Sarah didn't hear any of it. She was thinking about all the soldiers watching right now, seeing a fellow veteran standing tall, surrounded by family, refusing to be invisible anymore. Maybe one of them would reach out. Maybe one of them would ask for help. Maybe one of them would decide to keep fighting. That was enough. The Veterans Day ride happened 3 days later. 100 motorcycles gathered at the clubhouse before dawn. Sarah rode behind Gunner, her arms around his waist, the leather vest warm against her chest. The route took them through the California desert, past small towns and truck stops, and long stretches of nothing but sand and sky. Other riders joined along the way, veterans from other clubs, other walks of life, all converging on the same destination. By the time they reached the cemetery in Barstow, there were over 300 motorcycles. Sarah walked among the headstones alone. Row after row of white markers, each one representing a life cut short, a sacrifice made. She found herself stopping at one marker, a name she didn't recognize, a date that placed the death in 2011, Afghanistan. She knelt in the grass and touched the cold stone. I made it home, she whispered. You didn't. I'm sorry. She stayed there for a long time, the desert wind blowing around her, the rumble of motorcycles fading into silence. Then Gunner's hand was on her shoulder. You okay? Sarah stood, wiped her eyes, looked at the man who'd become her anchor in this strange new life. I'm okay, she said, and for the first time, she actually meant it. 6 months changed everything. Sarah Mitchell stood at the garage bay, elbow deep in a Harley engine, grease streaked across her forearms, and a smile she couldn't suppress tugging at her lips. The radio played classic rock. Jessica hummed along from the office window. Outside, the California sun beat down on a world that looked completely different from the one Sarah had known a year ago. You're grinning like an idiot. She looked up. Gunner leaned against the doorframe, arms crossed, watching her with amusement. I'm working. You're grinning while working. That's new. Sarah wiped her hands on a rag. Maybe I like my job. Maybe you like more than that. His eyes sparkled. Dinner tonight? Dusty's? You asking me on a date, Marcus Walsh? The use of his real name made him pause. She'd never called him Marcus before. It felt intimate, personal, like crossing a line they'd been dancing around for months. Maybe I am, he said quietly. Would that be okay? Sarah thought about all the reasons it shouldn't be. The age difference, the club dynamics, the complicated history that had brought them together. Then she thought about how he'd stayed at the hospital for 14 hours, how he'd held her hand when she woke up terrified, how he'd been there, steady and patient, through every step of her recovery. Pick me up at 7, she said. Gunner's smile could have lit up the whole garage. That evening, Dusty's Roadhouse was crowded with Saturday night regulars. Sarah walked through the same doors she'd sprinted out of 6 months ago. The same bar where she'd nursed warm beers and darker thoughts. The same parking lot where a bullet had changed everything. It looked different now, felt different, like the building itself had transformed along with her. Dolly spotted her from behind the bar and let out a whoop. There she is, the hero herself. I'm not a hero, Dolly. Honey, you've been saying that for 6 months and nobody believes you yet. Dolly poured 2 beers and slid them across the counter. On the house, Forever. Boss's orders. Sarah took the beer and found a booth in the corner. Not the shadowed corner where she used to hide. A different one. Near the window where she could see the sunset, painting the desert sky in shades of orange and gold. Gunnar slid in across from her. "Penny, for your thoughts." "Just thinking about the last time I was here." "Bad memories?" "Different memories." She took a sip. "I was a different person then. Angry, broken, ready to disappear and hoping nobody would notice. And now?" Sarah looked around the bar, at Dolly laughing with customers, at the jukebox playing Johnny Cash, at the door that had once felt like a barrier and now felt like a welcome mat. "Now I'm glad I didn't disappear." Gunnar reached across the table and took her hand. His palm was rough, calloused from years of motorcycles and mechanical work. It felt perfect against hers. "I'm glad too," he said. They sat like that for a long moment, hands intertwined, comfortable in the silence that only comes between people who understand each other completely. Then Sarah's phone buzzed. She pulled it out. A text from Elena. "Turn on Channel 7 News. Now." Sarah found the TV above the bar. Dolly was already changing the channel, her face pale. A news anchor filled the screen. Breaking news banner scrolling across the bottom. Viral video has now been viewed over 50 million times. The woman in the footage, identified as Army veteran Sarah Mitchell, gave a powerful statement outside the Bakersfield courthouse following the conviction of the man who shot her. Sarah's face appeared on screen. The press conference, her words about veterans mattering, about reaching out for help. Since the video went viral, Mitchell has received an outpouring of support from veterans across the country. The hashtag Sarah Strong has been trending for 3 days. Several veteran advocacy organizations have reached out to Mitchell, and sources indicate she has been invited to testify before Congress about the state of veteran support services. Sarah's beer slipped from her fingers. Gunnar caught it before it hit the table. "Congress?" she whispered. The screen cut to interviews. Veterans she'd never met, holding phones showing her face. "She said exactly what I needed to hear," a young woman in a wheelchair said. "I'd been thinking about giving up. Then I saw her video and I thought, if she can keep fighting, maybe I can too." Another face, an older man with haunted eyes. "I served in Vietnam, came home to people spitting on me. Nobody ever said I mattered. Nobody ever thanked me for anything." His voice cracked. "She's the first person who ever made me feel like my service meant something." Sarah couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The bar had gone quiet, everyone watching the screen, watching her. "I didn't mean for this to happen," she said. I just said what I felt." Gunnar's hand found hers again. "That's why it matters," he said. "Because it was real." The next 3 weeks were chaos. Sarah's phone rang constantly. Interview requests, speaking invitations, messages from veterans she'd never met, thanking her for words she'd almost not said. She turned down most of them. The attention felt wrong, overwhelming. She wasn't a spokesperson, wasn't a celebrity. She was just a woman who'd gotten shot and happened to survive. But the invitation from Congress was different. "You have to do it," Big Iron said during an emergency meeting at the clubhouse. "This is bigger than you, bigger than the club. This is about every veteran out there who's been forgotten." "I'm not a politician." "That's exactly why they need to hear from you." Preacher stepped forward, his chaplain's gravity evident in every word. "Politicians talk, generals talk, think tanks talk, but how often do regular soldiers get to speak? How often does the grunt who actually served, actually bled, actually suffered, how often do they get a seat at the table?" Sarah looked around the room. 50 faces, men and women who'd welcomed her, protected her, called her family. What would I even say? "The truth." Gunnar moved to stand beside her. "The same thing you said on those courthouse steps. About veterans being forgotten, about the VA failing us, about needing people to reach out and connect." He squeezed her shoulder. Tell them what it's like. Make them understand. Sarah thought about the letters, the thousands of messages from veterans who'd watched her video and felt seen for the first time. The young soldier in Texas who checked himself into a mental health facility because her words had given him permission to ask for help. The Vietnam vet in Maine who'd reconciled with his estranged family after 40 years of silence. She thought about all the soldiers still out there, still struggling, still invisible. Okay, she said, I'll do it. Washington, D.C. felt like another planet. Sarah had been to cities before, deployed through airports and bus stations across 3 continents, but nothing prepared her for the weight of this place. The marble buildings, the flags everywhere, the constant hum of power in politics. She sat in a hearing room, surrounded by senators and cameras and aides with clipboards. Her hands shook beneath the table. Her shoulder ached from tension. Gunnar had wanted to come. She'd told him no. This was something she needed to do alone. But she wasn't alone. Not really. Her phone buzzed with messages every few minutes. The club, Elena, Jessica, Lou, all of them sending support across 3,000 miles of distance. The committee chairwoman, a silver-haired woman with sharp eyes, called the hearing to order. Ms. Mitchell, thank you for joining us today. We've asked you here to share your experiences as a veteran navigating the transition to civilian life. Please, in your own words, tell us your story. Sarah leaned toward the microphone. Her voice came out steadier than she expected. My name is Sarah Mitchell. I served 3 tours in Afghanistan with the 101st Airborne Division. I was honorably discharged in 2019, and for 5 years after that, I was invisible. The room fell silent. Not literally invisible. People could see me. They just chose not to. The VA lost my paperwork 3 times. My disability claim took 18 months to process and was denied twice before being approved. I spent 2 years fighting for benefits I'd earned with blood and trauma, while bureaucrats shuffled papers and politicians made speeches about supporting the troops. She let that sink in. I moved 11 times in 5 years, couldn't hold a job, couldn't maintain relationships, couldn't sleep without nightmares or leave my apartment without checking for threats that didn't exist. I had every symptom of PTSD in the book, and the VA wait time for mental health services was 6 months. A senator shifted uncomfortably. 6 months, Sarah repeated. Do you know how long 6 months is when you're fighting your own brain? When every day feels like a battle you're losing? When you think about ending it all because at least that would stop the pain? The room was absolutely still. I almost didn't make it. I was drinking myself to death in a bar in Bakersfield when a shooter opened fire in the parking lot. I took a bullet protecting a stranger. And that bullet, that wound that should have destroyed me, saved my life. Because it connected me to people who understood, people who'd served, people who didn't judge or pity or forget. She looked directly into the cameras. Every day, 22 veterans die by suicide. 22. That's not a statistic. That's 22 families destroyed. 22 lifetimes of service forgotten. 22 warriors who survived the battlefield only to lose the war at home. Her voice hardened. We spend billions on military equipment, billions on weapons and vehicles and technology. But when those soldiers come home broken, we give them wait lists and paperwork and a pat on the back. We tell them to be patient, to fill out more forms, to wait 6 months for an appointment that might help them survive the next 6 months. Sarah stood up. She hadn't planned to. It just happened. I'm not here to ask for sympathy. I'm not here to complain. I'm here to tell you that the system is broken and veterans are dying because of it. Not in combat, not from enemy fire, from neglect, from isolation, from a country that thanks them for their service and then forgets they exist. She slammed her palm on the table. Several senators jumped. Fix it. Stop making speeches and fix it. Fund the VA properly. Hire enough staff. Cut the wait times, and for God's sake, stop treating veterans like inconveniences and start treating them like the heroes you claim they are. She sat down. The silence stretched for 10 seconds, 20, 30. Then the chairwoman cleared her throat. Ms. Mitchell, thank you for your candor. This committee will take your testimony under serious consideration. The hearing adjourned. Cameras clicked. Reporters shouted questions. Sarah walked out of the room with her head high and her hands steady. She didn't know if it would change anything. Didn't know if the politicians would actually listen or just go back to their paperwork and photo ops. But she'd said what needed to be said. And somewhere out there, a veteran was watching, feeling seen, feeling heard. That was enough. The flight home felt longer than the flight out. Sarah pressed her forehead against the window and watched the country scroll by beneath her. Cities and farms and mountains and deserts. A nation of 300 million people, most of whom would never know her name. But some would. Some already did. Her phone had exploded after the testimony went viral. More messages than she could count. Veterans saying thank you. Families saying thank you. Complete strangers saying her words had meant something. The video of her slamming the table had been viewed 80 million times. She still didn't understand how any of this had happened. 6 months ago, she'd been a ghost. Now she was trending on social media and fielding calls from news networks. All because she'd stepped in front of a bullet. All because she'd told the truth. Bakersfield appeared beneath the plane like an old friend. Sarah's heart lifted as the wheels touched down. Home. She was going home. Not to an empty apartment. Not to a rented room that smelled like mildew and despair. To a cottage behind a clubhouse, surrounded by people who loved her. She collected her bag and walked into the arrival terminal. And stopped. They were all there. Big Iron, Gunner, Preacher, Doc, Stitch, Whiskey Pete, Elena, Jessica, Lou, Dolly. 50 faces she'd come to know over 6 months of slowly learning to trust again. They held a banner, hand-painted, crooked letters. Welcome home, Sergeant. Sarah's vision blurred. Her throat closed up. She dropped her bag and walked toward them on legs that had suddenly forgotten how to work properly. Gunner reached her first, pulled her into his arms, held her like she might disappear if he let go. You did it, he whispered. I just talked. You changed things. The news is already reporting on increased VA funding proposals. 3 senators announced they're sponsoring a veterans' mental health bill, named it after you. What? The Mitchell Act. Gunner pulled back, his eyes shining. They're naming it after you. Sarah couldn't process it, couldn't make sense of a world where a broken veteran from Bakersfield had a congressional act named after her. I don't deserve... Stop. Big Iron's massive hand landed on her shoulder. Stop saying you don't deserve things. You earned every bit of this. You earned it with your service, your sacrifice, and your courage. Accept it. Sarah looked around at the faces surrounding her, the family she'd found, the home she'd built. Okay, she whispered. Okay. Christmas Eve at the clubhouse was the biggest gathering Sarah had ever seen. 200 people packed the space. Club members and their families. Veterans from across the state who'd heard about the Bakersfield chapter and its open-door policy. Elena and Preacher finally officially together after months of dancing around it. Jessica laughing in the corner with a young prospect who couldn't stop staring at her. Sarah stood near the fireplace, watching it all with wonder she couldn't hide. A year ago, she'd been planning to drink herself to death. Now she had a family, a purpose, a future she actually wanted to live. Gunner appeared beside her with 2 cups of hot cider. You look happy. I am happy. The words felt strange in her mouth. Foreign. True. I don't remember the last time I could say that. Get used to it. He handed her the cider. Merry Christmas, Sergeant. Merry Christmas, Marcus. They clinked cups. The warmth spread through Sarah's chest. Not just from the cider. Big Iron's voice boomed across the room. "All right, everyone, gather around, got something to say." The crowd shifted, forming a loose circle around the club president. Sarah found herself pulled to the front, Gunner's hand warm in hers. "This has been one hell of a year," Big Iron began. "We've seen things I never expected, done things I never imagined, and at the center of it all has been one woman." Every eye turned to Sarah. Sarah Mitchell came to us as a stranger, a wounded veteran who happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time, or maybe the right place at the right time. She took a bullet for one of our own, not because she owed us anything, not because she knew what it would mean, but because that's who she is. A protector, a warrior, a soldier to her core. He pulled something from his pocket, a small box. "We gave Sarah honorary membership 6 months ago, but tonight, with the full support of this chapter and every chapter who's heard her story, I want to offer her something more." He opened the box. Inside was a patch. Not the friend of the club patch she'd worn for months. Something different, something more. "Full membership," Big Iron said. "The first woman ever granted full patch status in this chapter's history. Earned not through prospecting, but through service, through sacrifice, through proving that courage doesn't care about gender or background or any of the other boxes people try to put each other in." The room held its breath. "Sarah Mitchell, will you accept?" Sarah stared at the patch, the weight of what it represented, the history, the brotherhood, the family. She thought about everything she'd survived to reach this moment. The war, the neglect, the bullet, the long road back to herself. She thought about her parents, dead for 10 years, who'd always believed she could do anything. She thought about the soldiers still out there, fighting battles nobody could see. "Yes," she said, "I accept." The room erupted. Cheers, applause, tears from people who didn't usually cry. Big Iron pressed the patch into her hands. "Welcome home, Sister Mitchell." Sarah held the patch against her chest, felt the weight of it, the belonging. She looked around at the faces surrounding her, the family she'd never expected, the home she'd never imagined. And she understood, finally, what she'd been searching for her whole life. Not a place, not a job, not recognition or awards or congressional acts. Just this: people who saw her, people who loved her, people who would ride through the night to find her if she ever got lost again. Family. Later that night, Sarah stood alone on the porch of her cottage. The party continued inside the clubhouse, but she'd needed a moment, a breath, a chance to process everything that had happened. The desert sky stretched above her, infinite and star-filled. The same sky she'd looked at from 1,000 different places over the years. Afghanistan, army bases, lonely apartments, hospital rooms. It had never looked quite like this before. Gunner's footsteps approached. She knew his walk by now, the slight limp from the shrapnel that still lived near his spine, the steady rhythm of a man who'd learned patience the hard way. "Mind some company?" "Never." He stood beside her, their shoulders touching. "Hell of a year," he said. "Hell of a year," she agreed. "Any regrets?" Sarah thought about the question, really thought about it. Just one. "What's that?" "That I almost didn't walk out of that bar 6 months ago. That I almost missed all of this because I was too broken to believe it could exist." Gunner turned to face her. His hands found her waist. "You're not broken, Sarah. You were never broken. You were just waiting for the right people to find you. And they did. We did." He leaned his forehead against hers. "I did." Sarah closed her eyes, breathed him in. This man who'd stayed 14 hours in a hospital waiting room, who'd held her hand through nightmares and court testimonies and congressional hearings, who'd never once asked her to be anything other than exactly who she was. "I love you," she said. The words came out before she could stop them. before she could analyze or doubt or retreat into old patterns. Gunner's arms tightened around her. "I love you too, Sergeant." They stood there for a long time, wrapped in each other while the stars wheeled overhead and the sounds of celebration drifted from the clubhouse. Inside, Elena was dancing with Preacher. Jessica was kissing the young prospect under a sprig of mistletoe someone had hung from the rafters. Big Iron was teaching children how to arm wrestle while their parents laughed in recorded videos. A family, imperfect, complicated, beautiful. Sarah's family. New Year's Eve came 7 days later. The countdown echoed through the clubhouse. 10, 9, 8. Sarah stood in the center of the crowd, Gunner's arms around her, surrounded by every person who'd helped save her life. 7, 6, 5. She thought about the year behind her, the bullet, the hospital, the trial, the testimony, the millions of people who'd watched her video and felt something shift inside them. 4, 3, 2. She thought about the year ahead, the new challenges, the new opportunities, the continuing work of helping veterans find their way home. 1. Happy New Year! Cheers exploded. Confetti rained down. Gunner pulled her into a kiss that tasted like champagne and promises. When they finally broke apart, breathless and grinning, Sarah looked around at the faces surrounding her. Her family, her home, her future. She thought about the woman she'd been a year ago. Broken, invisible, dying by inches in a shadowed corner of a Bakersfield bar. That woman was gone now. Not forgotten, you can never forget who you used to be. But transformed, healed, whole. Elena caught her eye from across the room and raised her glass. Preacher saluted with a smile. Big Iron nodded, his approval evident in the simple gesture. Jessica waved, her face glowing with joy. And Gunner, Marcus, pulled her closer and whispered against her hair. Ready for whatever comes next? Sarah Mitchell looked at the man she loved, at the family she'd found, at the life she'd never dared to imagine. "I'm ready," she said, and for the first time in her 35 years on this earth, she meant it completely. Outside, 300 motorcycles sat in the parking lot, chrome gleaming under the stars, engines silent but ready. Tomorrow they would ride again, escort another bullied kid to school, visit another veteran in hospice, raise money for another shelter, show up again and again for people who had no one else. That was who they were. That was what they did. And Sarah Mitchell, Sergeant Mitchell, Sister Mitchell, would be riding with them. Not because she had to, because she belonged. Because sometimes the family you need isn't the one you're born into. Sometimes it's the one that finds you bleeding in a parking lot and refuses to let you go. Sometimes home isn't a place at all. It's the people who show up when you need them most. And stay.